Hey everybody, my name's Andrew. I'm from Waterford, Ontario, Canada. I'm married and have two wonderful children. I'm a pastor of a church that's 8 months brand new called Hope for Today Church. Love for you to check us out, hopeforoTodayChurch.org. We're a conservative, evangelical, Pentecostal assembly of believers that believe Jesus is not only our hope for tomorrow, but our hope for today. Who would have thought in a million years that having faith in God, faith in Jesus at this time in history would be so polarizing and appear so divisive? But I truly believe that faith in Jesus brings peace to the world and transforms our lives. So it's a pleasure to be here with you tonight.
Welcome to Ksok-Uncensored. Wow, I'm moved. That was a beautiful introduction, and you could just narrate movies. Seriously, I'm very impressed, Andrew.
Right on. Thanks for that.
Oh my gosh. And the music in the background did help. So nice score, Drew. But excellent. Thank you so much for joining us today. Really excited to have you here.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to be here tonight, Casey. Thanks for the invitation.
Of course. And you and I just came into contact like not too long ago, so we don't have a lot of rapport. So
That's
actually, it's
right.
going to be a lot of fun where I can learn quite a bit about you here live. So excited for that. Obviously, being a pastor and being in Canada, to me, the first thing that comes to mind is how did you fare during the lockdowns in 2020? I'll just stop there. That's really top of mind for me. I want to jump right in. How did that play out for you?
Yeah, I mean, personally and professionally, it was a whirlwind. Moment you're meeting together with people, and then you're told you can't meet anymore. So that was a real whirlwind for us and our leadership team, and we had to adjust. We had to shift from being in person and doing what we normally do to completely shift online and incorporate technology and different things in order to continue to connect with people and keep getting the message out. And what was most difficult during that time is after a short amount of period, my job was no longer available due to finances with COVID. They had to let me go. And so that shifted everything for me and my family that eventually led to what we're currently doing now with Hope for Today.
So you've been in your new role for 8 months. So how were you able to actually, I'll back up. So was your church or, where you worked and where you were a pastor at the time, did they ever push back against the mandates of closing the doors and not doing anything in person? Or was it more of a compliance take?
Yeah, it was more of a compliance. Our church, the church I was part of previously, was a we call a Mennonite Brethren church. It was about peace, taking the least passive resistance, if at all possible, to support local government. I mean, the Bible tells us to uphold our government officials, to show respect to those who are owed our respect, and show honor where honor is owed. And so that's where we originally started off, because we trusted that our officials would do the right thing, would do right by all of us. And so the leadership team decided not to, push against some of those measures that were put in place. But down the way, along the line, a lot of churches in the area start to push back and said, no, we need to be open. But our church wasn't one of those. I mean, personally, I wasn't in favor of it. I think we always need to meet, especially when people are saying, no, you can't sing, you can't gather, it's dangerous. At the end of the day, it's challenging our faith if we don't meet, right?
Right. Right. Exactly. I know it's tough for me. I have friends. I don't go to church like every week, but I try to at least once every couple of months. But I have friends from my church who, when everything was going down, right like in June of 2020, my husband's a police officer. So when there was like the war on police,
Right.
she and I connected, and she was very much like, I just want people to see the basically that like the path of least resistance, that I'm a good, loving Christian, that I'm all about togetherness and acceptance. And for me, it did make me think. I was like, am I going about this wrong? Because I've been very
Right.
boisterous. And then I was like, no, Jesus was the biggest disruptor known to man. And so for me, it's been, I definitely thought about it, but then I was like, absolutely not. I have so much respect for the churches that did eventually say, cut the BS. We're going to be in person, and we're going to gather because this is
Right.
what our country was founded on.
Right.
Sorry, I
Definitely.
know you're in Canada, so it's a little bit of a different
A little bit
background.
different, but yeah.
But seriously, I mean, what are your thoughts on how is it at the church you're at today?
Well, at our church, it's very different, and we really believe in a vocal expression of faith, gathering together in freedom and expression of worship, to not to being forced to wear a mask and not being able to sing or to congregate. We believe it's important for us to be able to do that. But in our country, it's very different. Canadians are very polite, standoffish people at times. We don't want to rock the boat. We don't want to get in the way. Again, it comes from trusting our leaders. But in this case, it's hard to trust when the science at times doesn't seem to make sense.
Right, exactly. I know. It's so tough. I'll be completely honest. I was trusting in our government for my entire life until these last 2, 3 years. And with the Trump administration and everything that Trump was bringing to light, like fake news and just so much that I had not wrapped my head around. I've always had conservative values, but I was very trusting in the government. I was incredibly pro military, and I'm talking even at the top. Now, there's amazing people in the military still, but there's some very crooked leaders at the top.
True.
Um, I respected politicians for the most part. So it's been this 180 for me, and for a lot of people across the globe, really. In these last couple years, we've really woken up, and it is alarming the abuse of power that is
Yes.
happening all over the place. So I'm with you. I don't trust anybody. I don't think anyone has our intentions in mind
Yeah,
except
it's
for
tough.
God. I mean, seriously. God, family, country. Like I just have to keep what are your thoughts on where you stand today in Canada, in your providence?
Like, in just in regards to what's going on with the 5V and all that stuff.
Yes, but we can't go into the topic too much, but just what is the state of the union there? How are people feeling in general?
Yeah, I mean, it's a great question. Things are getting pretty heated. Just a few days ago, there's been a travel advisory now telling people to avoid travel. Apparently, we have the highest, numbers of cases in our country, in our province, especially. There's talk of shutting things down, students returning to online learning. There's people who are running afraid and fearful of the new variant. There's those wondering,
Yeah,
should I, go ahead and take care of myself and get the job or not?
right.
But that spills over into whole other areas with inflation. It's starting to get a little crazy, to be honest. And for me,
Yeah,
that's where I rely on faith, like you had mentioned, that either God is sovereign, He's involved in our day to day and in the course of human history, or He's not. And if that's the case, we're in big trouble.
right, right. Absolutely. Talking about inflation, I have to tell you, I have been so sick of buying. I have this routine. I buy ground beef, ground chicken, ground turkey. And then, like, I was like, I want a big steak. And so the other day I went to the grocery store and I'm like, oh my gosh, I could not believe. Of course, I'm not going to eat the crap steak, but I got this steak bone in. It was $20 for one. I mean, my
Wow.
husband and I felt like I was sitting at the table with Scrooge, and my husband and I like shared the one steak. I'm like, it was principle. I had the money. I'm not spending more on
Right.
steak. I mean, that was so ridiculous. And then, being me, I couldn't help but there's people around me and I'm like, my kids were right next to me. I'm like, you can thank Biden for this. And people, I'm sure everyone around me was a Biden voter because I'm in the Portland area.
Right.
But I couldn't believe it. It was crazy. Oh, so infuriating.
Yeah, it's been really hard for us. I mean, especially at the pumps with gasoline prices here, we pay per liter. So it's $1.43 or $1.50, depending where you are. And that's per liter. That's more than per gallon. So we really are feeling it. It really is a luxury to get out and drive your car with your family and go somewhere.
Wow. Wow. Yeah, it's really that's really sad. It really is. Um, that's the only benefit for me from working from home is that I don't
Right.
have to fill up like every other day like I used to. But yeah, it's absolutely horrendous everywhere. So let's talk about, I'm just curious for you, how has it been with being in your position, right? In your new church, 8 months old. Have you experienced any pain points? Because starting something amidst this pandemic, that's tough. That's not easy. Um, have you received pushback from anybody? Are your practices of being a little more open concerning mandates being challenged?
Mm. We haven't experienced anything of that kind as of yet. I mean, in the initial starting, it was tough because, like I said earlier, I lost my job. I've gone into this fully pro bono. I put my life savings into this, everything right in the beginning. I don't have any remuneration from leading this new assembly. And so I'm just trusting and believing as we continue to be an open and expressive place for worship, and it includes singing and not, enforcing mass and so on, that it will be rewarded and the people will embrace it, because people, I think, are sick and living in fear. They want to experience real freedom and life again, to that fact.
Right, absolutely. I'm actually, I told my mom the other day, I was recognizing her. There's my work talk again. But basically, early on, they had me going for like a month. I was like, oh God, I gotta wash my hands wearing gloves, all that.
Right.
Like a month. And then I remember we were on like a text thread, a family text thread, and my dad sent something out. Now they're saying spray Lysol on Amazon packages and all your. And my mom said, I refuse to live this way. If this is how I go out, that's how I go out. And it really resonated with me because my mom is a little bit more of a soldier than I am, I would say. So to hear her say, I refuse to live in fear, I was so proud of her. And then that's when it changed
Wow.
for me. It was like a switch. And I
Right.
was like, me too. I'm not doing this. It's so toxic for your body.
Mm.
And so I'm the same way. Like fear is so toxic and we just want to live and experience life again. So I think that's great what you're doing. I have to ask you because you said evangelical, right?
Right.
I'm just going to be totally on. When I hear that, I think of like people holding snakes. Can you
I thought you were
help
going to
me
say,
understand because
absolutely.
I'm like a non-denomination Christian, but when I think of that, I
Absolutely.
think of the South and they're holding snakes and
Sure. I'll do my best with that. So,
okay.
evangelical just means that we believe in the entirety of God's word from cover to cover. We're Bible believing assembly of Christians. Pentecostal is believing the expression of the spiritual gifts given by Jesus to empower us to be his witnesses on this earth. So there are factions within Pentecostalism, especially in the mountainous regions, I think, in the deep south, where you'll
Mhm.
have snake handlers, snake charmers, but that would be nothing like what we're like.
Okay.
On the
So
flip side, we
yeah,
do believe that God, he's with us, and that, the Apostle Paul says that we could even drink deadly poison, it will not harm us. It's just coming from an aspect of faith. And so that's why faith people in our community, they're not rushing to get a jab, because they're trusting in God that he's going to protect them in this hour of the infirmities that are going around.
interesting. Okay. I can't
Hopefully
follow up
that
too
helps.
much. I can't yeah, no, that really helps. I can't follow up too much on that last piece, but no, that's really interesting, and that makes sense that it is in the Deep South because I had family friends, they moved to Georgia, and they were from Portland, and so being Catholic in Portland and then moving to Georgia, and they changed, and they were, evangelical, and they would tell me about it, and I'm like they talked about, like, the snake handling and stuff. I'm like,
Really
"Whoa." So then I got that
interesting.
stigma, when I
Right.
thought of it, so thank you for breaking that.
Absolutely. Well, I'm glad you brought that up. I've never heard that before with the term evangelical. That is totally new. So I'm glad you did bring that up.
Yeah, no, I'm like, "Help me out here."
Absolutely.
Oh, goodness. So what are your thoughts on I have, people will ask me, especially, like, my family's all from the East Coast, and they're mostly Catholic. Sorry, my in-laws, that whole side, my husband and his
Okay.
whole side of the family, and they'll be like,
Cool.
"Oh, what's your religion?" And I'm like, "Christian." They're like, "Christian." And I'm like, I grew up just like non-denomination Christian. I guess if
Okay.
there had to be something, it would be like the closest is like Baptist or something. But Why is it so hard for people that aren't necessarily, I guess not from my area, the West Coast, why is it so hard for them to understand that you don't have to have a denomination? Like, is this something that you're aware of, or where is
People
that
from
coming from?
the dawn of history, people have always had allegiances to one person or one thing or another. And I think it's hard to cut the cord at times. At the
Mhm.
end of the day, if you were to ask me, what are you into? Mine's just a personal relationship with Jesus. And yes, I'm part of a denomination of Pentecostalism. Again, that just means I believe in his empowerment to live a godly life on this earth until I meet him one day. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is our relationship. And so those different groups, sometimes they get so caught up in I'm Catholic or I'm Baptist or I'm Lutheran or what name you, where they're missing the point of that relationship. And I think if we got back to that relationship, that we'd experience that peace in our life and our peace and love towards one another, because we find out we actually have more in common than we don't.
I see. Okay. No, that's really helpful. Yeah, it makes sense because I'm always like non-denomination,
Right.
like, I don't think we do anything special,
Now, there
but
is something beneficial, if I may add, about
yeah.
denominations. They help keep us accountable. So, someone like myself, they are watching over to make sure you're not mismanaging funds. When people give their
Okay.
hard-earned money, and some people, do I give or do I put food on the table for my family? So,
Right.
denominations are very important in that regard, but they also, on the other side, can cause a lot of hurt and confusion as well.
I see. Okay, that's really interesting. I wouldn't have thought of that. Ooh, we flipped. Exciting.
Hey, all right,
Whoa, where'd you go? Um,
changing it up.
yeah, seriously. I have to ask you, the picture behind you, is
Mhm.
that a jet? Oh, okay.
Yeah,
What?
that's in honor of the RAF, the Royal Air Force. My grandfather flew in World War II as Spitfire flying ace.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
Okay,
Norman
I'm not
Pierce.
really great. Is it a bomber? Was it a
Yeah,
bomber?
Spitfire is just is a fighter plane from the era.
Fighter plane. Okay, cool.
Hmm.
Because my grandpa flew
Great.
in the US Air Force bomber planes, the Widowmakers. I think it's a B-26. I think that's it. But that's really cool. Really cool.
It
I
is
love
cool.
that.
I'm definitely proud of him. Absolutely.
Yeah, same here for sure. Well, I appreciate you sharing that information. I'm curious, as a Canadian, when you think of the United States and just in general, what is the stigma attached to us? Just give it to us. You're not going to hurt anyone's feelings here.
Okay. Well, I love America. For me, it is the home of the free and the brave, standing up for justice in the world, the sword, if you will. But I have a positive outlook on the United States. Now, in Canada, we are more of a liberal country. So there are some would see America kind of as the big bully on the world stage, but I don't hold that view. Personally myself, I miss seeing. President Trump, the way he was orchestrating and leading your country, far more than the current administration. However, I wish I could speak for our whole country, because we really shouldn't speak much ourselves about the state because of our own affairs. So
Yeah.
I think you're definitely are better off than we currently are, for that
Yeah.
matter. Yeah.
We're you're just a couple steps ahead of us, honestly, as far as in the tyranny grand scheme of things, unfortunately.
Absolutely. A lot more measures, a lot more restrictions,
Yeah. Yeah.
on many regards.
I'm curious what your gun laws are like in Canada. Are you familiar with them?
That's an area I'm not fully, immersed in. We can't carry out in public. I know people can have licenses for hunting and those kind of things,
Oh,
but
okay,
we have
so
a
no
lot more
concealed
ban.
carry?
Right, we don't have
Oh,
anything like that, from what I'm aware of. I'm not even
yeah.
sure if a police officer who's off duty, if he can still, or he or she can carry. I have no idea.
Wow,
But there's a
wow.
lot of legislation out there of trying to, ban, assault weapons and those type of things that could be harmful. We're definitely
Yeah.
not as open as the United States.
Yeah, yeah, makes sense. Quite a few people saying they miss him too, miss Donald J. Trump. Yeah,
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, back on that, it's so disheartening when we see Biden and he's at these press conferences. I mean, never have we had somebody who was able to just walk away from questions without
mm,
response.
right.
And It is so sad. We are in a very sad position. Somebody posted something online today that stuck with me, and it was like,
Okay.
if I was the United States watching the United States, I would attack them because they're weak right now. Like, right? Like,
Mm,
basically, like, we're in such a
wow.
poor position. We are so vulnerable right now as a country, that we are just asking for a takeover, really. So
Right.
it's and we have the wide open southern border, and I mean
That's unreal.
it really is. And when I say wide open, it's wide open.
Right.
So yeah, we're in a sad position here, but I will say we still have that pioneer, especially on the west and Midwest. There's still like that pioneer mentality, and there's some tough people out here that are not willing to go down without a fight,
Right
and
on.
I think that's really what sets us apart. I look at Venezuela,
Yes.
I look at Australia, New Zealand, we're looking at
Yeah.
Austria
Australia.
now, Germany. I mean, it's all history is repeating itself, and I think the reason that we haven't been so easily, really completely taken is because we do have the, Second Amendment,
Right.
and, that is the one thing that really stands between a complete takeover,
Mm.
and that, gun ownership has skyrocketed over the past, oh
Is
gosh,
that
about
right?
5 years. If you wanna think when people thought Hillary was gonna win,
Right.
the gun sales were through the roof, and then we
Is that
had
right?
4 years where it just tapered off, and then boof, I mean, gun sales are like, oh my gosh. I mean, I have a friend who owns a gun shop around here. He's sitting pretty. So, but you can't even get ammo anymore. That's how much people have stocked up.
Wow.
So, that is what helps us restore and retain our freedoms. Um, but it is always interesting to hear what other countries, because I know we have we don't look the best to, especially the more liberal countries.
Well,
Uh,
that's why our country's in big trouble because we don't have the means to overthrow if it becomes,
yeah.
a massive tyranny, and we don't have the provisions that your citizens enjoy. So we really are vulnerable, and we really look to our big brother. Many Canadians will call the states our big brother because we don't have a big, mighty military or anything like
Yeah.
that. We kind of joke. We might say we have a few diesel submarines that don't even work.
Oh,
So
man. Yeah, that's someone, Ebaz put something over here. We gave weapons to Taliban and a wide open border. We aren't checking the border. We have sleeper cells in from Afghanistan. We didn't look into them. I mean, yeah,
right,
we're not in a good position at all, for sure. But like you said, I mean, either is Canada. We're in the position where, it's really gonna we have that open border, we have a weakened I mean, everything our security is our national security is weakened, but
mm,
as far as you think about like a civil war
mm,
coming down the pipe, which I kind of feel like that might be what happens here. Um, it's going to be different because we do have that Second Amendment, and a lot of people have been preparing for that. So, we have so many comments over here. This is exciting. I
that's
love
wonderful.
it. Jimmy Jones made me want Jimmy John's. Thanks a lot. Do you ever do that food association when you look at something? Let's go, Brandon. Love it. This is
Right.
great. Yes, God bless American patriots. Yeah, no. So, and then we have Vic here saying, I'm so happy for our 2A. Australia screwed up with their buyback. Yes.
Mm.
Oh gosh. Well, how many minutes do we have here? We have, okay. So have you been hearing about basically, so I'm in the Portland, Oregon area, and I don't know if you've heard like Portland, Seattle, New York City, you think about very liberal cities with very high crime. I mean, ours is up, our homicides are up 800%. I don't know if that makes the international news or not, but because my husband is a Portland police officer, I pay close attention to the homicides and the gun violence.
Right.
But it's wild because when I dive into the root cause, I mean, there's quite a few, but when I really dive into what's going on. We have really weak prosecutors in those cities where they
Mm,
are letting people go. Now, I don't know if you guys have like a zero bail policy, but basically, in a lot of these very leftist liberal cities, you can get arrested for some, you could literally go rob somebody, get arrested, and then you could be let out same day on the zero bail policy.
wow.
And because they say it's like racist to have bail. And so you're let out, and these people are repeat offenders. They go and commit more crimes. They're back in, back out, back in,
Right.
back out. Um,
Unreal.
that is the common thread that I'm seeing when it comes to why the
Mm.
crime is so high. I don't know. Do you have something like that in your jail system? People are just let
We
out.
don't have a catch and release or anything like that that I'm aware of. I've just known for a long time that, and forgive me for not knowing exactly our laws in that regard, but they are fairly weak. We have a lot of
Okay.
hardened criminals that don't spend much time in prison for murders and such. So it's really sad that we have it in that regard. But yeah, I remember watching on the news. There was a store I think in California was tired of people robbing and theft for for low price items. So he raised the price I
Yes.
think to $1,000 or something.
Yes.
That
Isn't
was
that amazing?
amazing.
Yeah.
Yes, smart, taking
And
justice
so
in his hands.
it's so smart. So for people watching, okay, so like he raised it to the exact amount that you would need for it to be oh gosh, what was the next level for it to actually be whatever. Sorry you guys, this is where my husband would school me if you heard
More than
him
a
stumbling
misdemeanor,
here.
that's for sure.
Yeah, more than a misdemeanor, right? So they raised it to the, which was right around $1,000. And then when they actually go to ring up, then he scans this little coupon that makes it the appropriate price.
That's right.
But yeah, but yeah, I saw
Genius.
that. I'm like, genius. I mean, seriously, you have to outsmart these people, which really isn't that hard. We just have to, come together and do it.
It is
But
unreal. I gotta admit, over here, like we don't have that kind of action happening in our stores. Again, we're a very polite civilization, a country, I should say. So when we turn on the news, sometimes you think it's a movie. Like that can't really be happening in America, right?
yeah, it's nuts. I mean,
It is nuts.
seriously. Yeah, it really is wild. Have you seen them? They're like clearing out Nordstrom's too, especially in
Yes,
San Francisco. San Francisco is so horrible, so horrible. Probably one of the worst cities in the country right now, um, with crime, as far as crime's concerned. That people are leaving their trunks open. Like
yes.
you and I went to a store, we would be so afraid of someone breaking into our vehicle. We're going to leave our windows down, trunk open, telling people, I don't have anything for you to steal. So that's what
Wow.
it's like a common trend. You'll see them leaving their cars wide open so that they don't get a smashed window.
It's like a
Uh,
Twilight Zone. It doesn't make any sense. Like, where's the
yeah,
justice, right?
exactly. It's wild. So yeah, so things are pretty crazy here. I'll have to tell you, I have to ask you to pivot back
Sure.
to Canada. Do you watch the CFL?
Not occasionally. I did watch. I
Okay.
did tune in here and there with the game with the record back to back
Okay.
championship there in Winnipeg. Yeah,
Who's your team?
the Hamilton Tiger Cats. I'm more of an NFL guy, I got to admit, but
Okay.
yeah,
Okay, cool.
go
Because 'Cause I'm
Brady.
friends with I was in Dallas, like, 6 years ago, and I ended up making friends with a CFL coach, and,
Wow,
so his name's Chris Jones. He was Saskatchewan's head coach, and then when I met him, I think he was red black. But anyways, it's pretty cool. So I've traveled up to BC to catch a few games, and,
nice.
so that's been fun being able to hang out there, but and
Well, I'm
it's
heading
only,
to
like, a
Pittsburgh.
six-hour drive from me.
Well, talking about 6 hours, I'm heading to Pittsburgh tomorrow to go catch the Penguins hockey game. I'm super excited. I'm
Oh.
hoping my prime minister doesn't shut down the border in the morning. You know,
Yeah,
but
seriously.
I've been looking for this. We were going to go 2 years ago, and then everything happened, and I told my wife we're gonna have to wait, and we just kept delaying it, and so we've been really looking forward to this trip.
That is exciting. Well, good. I'm glad you're
Yeah,
getting out and doing that.
yeah, we're
That
pumped.
is awesome. Yeah, hockey's amazing. That's my husband was a hockey player, high school, college,
Oh,
and
cool.
then he was NYPD, and NYPD has their own hockey team,
I
which is
wouldn't have
really
guessed
cool.
that.
Yeah, so
That's
he was
that's
on
awesome.
NYPD hockey. Yeah, so that's pretty fun. So we watch the NHL when it's on. So
Nice.
that's pretty cool.
Go
Yeah.
Penguins.
Yeah, hey.
Excellent. Look
Well,
at that.
I want to thank you so much. Actually, let me integrate some of the comments here. Let's see here. Christopher, thank you. Ebaz. Seems to be a lot of mental health issues and all these people. Yes. I mean, I could really dive into what's going on in Portland, but I know not everyone's in
Right.
Portland, so it could be boring. Yeah, he's right. Like basically, and sorry to just go off, but I want to integrate some of these. It basically is saying if you disagree, then you're racist, which is so wild because I know so many conservative people who are not white. I mean, it's like,
Right.
and they're so frustrated with that narrative. It's so
Or you're
ridiculous.
intolerant. That's the big thing for us
Yes.
here. If you don't, go
Intolerant.
along with it, you're intolerant.
Yep, yep. It's like when did intolerance become a negative? You know what I mean? And I'm not talking about with race. I'm talking about in
Right.
general.
Just in general.
Like here, the Oregon governor made it to where you don't even have to pass high school. You don't have to know how to read. Basically, there aren't reading requirements, writing requirements, or math requirements to
Is that
pass high
right?
school. And to me, it's like she's trying to be inclusive, and one, it's a complete insult to
Mm,
people because she's basically saying they're dumb.
right,
The other thing is at what point it tells people don't have standards, don't have
right.
any goals, don't have standards, don't work towards something. We're just going to let you pass it as long as you have a heartbeat and show up once in a while. I mean, and that's not setting them up for the real world. What it's doing is it's setting them up to be dependent on government the rest of their lives. And it is so broken in so many states, but mainly the left
Right.
states. And
Planning to fail.
oh yeah, yeah, it's basically it's crazy. We have a Jay Inslee now. The governor of that's the governor of Washington State. He
Okay.
is, dare I say, worse than my Oregon governor. I'd say so.
Wow.
He's online telling people that are not jabbed that they're murderers. And that's the governor of Washington State.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, he's a real piece of garbage. And
Wow.
as you know, Portland and Washington, we're like, it's just the Columbia River is what divides us. And I have my dad and my sister are in Washington, and then I'm in Oregon. And so I'm in Washington all the time. And I had thought of moving
Mm.
that way. And I'm like, he is bad news for
What do you
sure.
think would happen, if you don't mind me saying, what do you think would happen if we just respect each other's choice to go, whether it's one way or
I
the
know.
other? Like
I
for
know.
myself, I chose to get it because as a clergy member to give last rites for people in hospitals. So I made
Oh,
the choice to do that to probably, without thinking of my own health and what would happen in the future.
very selfless. Yeah. No, I think that's I don't know why it's so difficult for people to respect each other's decisions. I
Right.
mean, that's all I ask. That is all I ask
That's
is
it.
one for the option to make my decision for my body. And I won't dive too far into this because I don't want to YouTube to tag me. But yeah, it should be about us respecting the fact that we all are free thinkers, diversity of thought, right? When
That's
did that
right.
go out the window? But yeah. See here, don't all the good people or all the good people are leaving. Yeah, well, I won't be leaving anytime soon. My husband and I get in arguments all the time. I want to relocate. I'm like, South Dakota or Tennessee, and he's like, no. So
Texas would be my place. Texas or Florida.
see, okay, so Texas and Florida. So Florida, the weather, I can't do humidity.
Mm,
The governor's the best in the US, in my opinion, but I
pretty
can't do
impressive.
humidity. Yeah, he
Is
is
yeah.
amazing. He is America's
Crenshaw's
president.
my fan.
Who?
I'm a fan of Crenshaw. Sorry to
Oh,
talk over
Dan
you there. Dan
Crenshaw. You know
Crenshaw.
what, though? You might not like this. I think he's a
Oh,
rhino. Republican in name only.
really?
I liked him, but he is very, and I'm curious if anyone says anything, he is very borderline on, like he's like a Liz Cheney supporter. Like he's said some positive things about her, and she is
Is that
nasty.
right?
Yeah. It was
Wow.
very disappointing because I love that he's a vet and I love a
Yeah.
lot of what he has to
Yeah.
say,
I watch a
but
lot of his stuff on, Instagram and that. It sounds pretty solid. I wanted to
I
get his book
know.
actually.
You know what? And I could be, there are a lot of people that disagree with me, but then there's a lot of people that
Okay.
were all like, what? Like, did you just see who he was
Yeah.
with? And we're just kind of putting it together that he might
Have to
not
check
be
that
who
out.
he is. Yeah. So Juan says he's a rhino. Yeah, I
Wow,
know. It's
okay.
one of those, you're getting a whole, this is like a little American politics lesson
Yeah, I'm
for you.
getting an education. I'm getting educated.
Yeah. I'm like, but yeah,
Live.
I wish I could red pill you so you could vote here, but anyways. But what do you guys call it over there? What are your like obviously Republican, Democrat here?
So
What do you
here,
guys
red is liberal and blue is conservative. So
what?
it's liberal, conservative, and then NDP are the three major parties, and there's a bunch of smaller ones. Our
Really?
system, I couldn't even explain our system to you. It is so confusing. Yeah,
Wow.
we don't have term limits on our prime ministers
Ooh,
or our senators. Yeah,
I don't
so you
like
could,
that.
yeah, no, that can be. Well, that's just putting us in a tough place right now. And with our electoral system, because there's such a dense population in Ontario, basically the residents of Toronto, determine the prime minister every election.
Ah,
So
so frustrating.
it is really frustrating.
I feel your pain because here in Oregon, if you look at Oregon, even
Hmm.
California, you think,
Yeah,
oh, liberal, right? No, if you break it down
yeah.
by county, there is so much red, even Washington State. And whatever
Wow.
Portland
Okay,
does is what we are. It's really frustrating. So I completely feel your pain on that.
it is frustrating.
Yeah, it really is. All right. Well, I have to ask you one last thing. What is your, well, let's see here. I know our food's not that different, but when I go to Canada, I get poutine for sure. I've tried to make my own here. Bad news. Cheese curd, right? Like melted cheese curd
Right.
with
That's
some
it.
gravy.
Yum.
I missed something. What did I do? Do you guys eat poutine where you're at?
Oh, absolutely. Poutine's like the staple. One of the things I love when I go to the States are biscuits and gravy. So,
Okay. All
yeah,
right. I like it. And that's very I guess southern, but it also can just be country in general.
sure. Not
Yeah.
good for the heart, but yeah, it's tasty.
Good for the soul.
Good for the soul. That's right.
Yeah,
Let's
there
stick
you
with
go.
that.
That's about where I'm at with every time I go there, I'm like, I need, French fries are my weakness. I'm like, the poutine's like amazing. But anyways, all right, awesome. Well, you have been just a joy to chat with, and I'm glad we were able to go a little over the 30 minutes. So
Yeah,
so fun. And just
this
thank
was
you so
fun.
much for taking time out of your evening.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me.
Thank you so much. Have a great trip and great hockey game.
Thank you. Go Pens.
All right. See you later. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. That was really fun. It's always fun to talk to somebody who's not from the United States or your neck of the woods, because then you can really get to understand what they're experiencing, where they're at. So we will be here next Thursday. I'm thinking of doing it in my Christmas tree room. As you guys know, this is not where I usually film. My office has been turned into a Christmas tree room. So, but anyways, we'll be doing it next Thursday, despite the holiday 2 days later. And I look forward to seeing you guys. We actually have another Canadian guest, so that'll be really fun. So we're going to be up north here in the next, for 2 weeks in a row. So that's pretty exciting. So after me, if you want to go and view, let's see here, Blue Family Unity and the Loaded Mic, you have to go on to rightamericamedia.com this week. We're only streaming my show live today. And we had our very own Drew. He's the assistant producer. He did it solo tonight. And so pretty exciting. Everything went off without a hitch, and couldn't be more proud, and just a really great evening altogether. So thank you guys so much for tuning in. I saw a lot of you chatting with me, and I just really appreciate it. And I look forward to seeing my tree. Yeah, I know. I'll get it nice and fancy for you guys. But thank you all. You're like family to me. So thank you so much, and you have a wonderful evening.